So my name is Shaneel Chandra, and I work for the Department of Environment, Science and Innovation. It's such a pleasure to be here talking to you all, and equally importantly, thanks for having us here to talk to you today. There are several of us from the department in attendance today, and you'll be hearing from us throughout the day. And I will be introducing some of them in my talk as well, because there's some overlapping themes between on what we're going to be talking about. My talk today is around how we are tracking with the reef water quality targets. I should begin by distinguishing between the term, defining the term reef. When we talk reef, or when I mention reef, we're talking about the inshore reef. That is the region of catchment that includes the ecosystems, the seagrass, etc. When we say reef wide, we're referring to the whole reef beyond the inshore. And the reef is under quite a few threats. The most obvious one would be climate change. And the evidence of its impact is backed by the scientific consensus statement that was released very recently. And at this point, I'd like to mention that we do have Jane Waterhouse from P2R Consulting in attendance, who will be presenting this in more detail later on. So apart from climate change, we've also got threats like land-based runoff and coastal land use change, as well as direct use. Now, with land-based runoff, our focus is on nutrients, fine sediments, and pesticides. Fairly self-explanatory, because nutrients influence growth of algae, which affects coral growth as well, and it also leads to things like eutrophication. Fine sediments disrupt the photic zone of corals, which causes issues in their growth. As well as that, fine sediments carry nutrients in the particulate form, as well as other pollutants sometimes. And pesticides, we all know what the impacts are on living things. These are of interest to us all of these threats, because they are within our control, really. And they allow us to make a positive difference to the reef water quality. We are interested and invested in the reef water quality because it improves, it allows for greater coral resilience. It builds resilience in inshore, coastal, and seagrass areas, which support significant biodiversity, such as turtles and dugongs, and drive fisheries productivity. I've mentioned that land-based runoff contains nutrients, sediments, and pesticides. These affect not only the water quality itself, but they affect the biodiversity and health of the living things around the reef. Now, nitrogen discharge is associated with greater algal growth, and this is one of the biggest challenges we've had around water quality in the reef region. When we talk about coastal land use change, that includes clearing and modifying coastal habitats and creating artificial barriers to water flows. So the Reef 2050 Water Quality Improvement Plan is a joint commitment between the federal government and the Queensland government, and it seeks to improve the quality of water flowing from the reef catchments to the Great Barrier Reef. The actions are to 2050, but the targets are to 2025. And I've got my colleague Maria Rosea from the department who's present here. She's the manager of reef policy, who will be presenting this in a bit more detail. But I'm going to talk to you briefly about the Water Quality Improvement Plan and the targets, very briefly though. The human dimension targets, which is at the bottom in blue, is where we all work together, because we are all invested in the health of the reef and the quality of water around it. The land catchment targets are where land-based activities and stakeholders would be most interested in. The water quality targets in blue are ecologically relevant targets of water health required to sustain healthy reef ecosystems. In green above the blue are, they're a bit small, sorry for that, are the objectives around coral, wetland, and seagrass conditions and biodiversity. So the Paddock to Reef program, which I represent, is similar to the water quality improvement plan, and it measures and reports on progress towards reef water quality improvement plan targets, objectives, and outcome. It integrates modeling results, and is based on adaptive management and continuous improvement. It's a multi-stakeholder collaboration involving governments, industry bodies, regional natural resource management bodies, landholders, and research organizations. It has continued to improve in terms of scope, methodology, and application over the 10-year period of its implementation. Very importantly, it features a strong management-science interaction. The program uses multiple lines of evidence to report against the REEF 2050 Water Quality Improvement Plan targets and supports program evaluation. It adopts a combined monitoring and modeling approach across a range of attributes and a range of scales across the Great Barrier Reef catchment, including paddock, sub-catchments, regional areas, and Great Barrier Reef wide overall. In line with the REEF 2050 Water Quality Improvement Plan overarching framework, the program evaluates management practice adoption, management practice effectiveness, catchment condition pollutant runoff, and marine conditions. The program areas are interlinked and integrated through a common assessment and reporting framework and are outlined in the next slide with the major program themes. The Great Barrier Reef region is vast, we all know that, and for that reason, we've got findings reported by regions, of which we have 6. The 6 natural resource management regions can be further divided into 35 catchments and 47 management units, including major sub-catchments. Due to the size of the Great Barrier Reef, the Reef Water Quality Report Card is produced as an interactive web-based product. So it's not just a document of 1,000 pages, it's actually a much more user-friendly interactive report produced as a web-based product. So the present report card shows progress towards the Reef Water Quality Improvement Plan targets and objectives to June 2022. It takes approximately 18 months to produce a report card from the period of the data that it is reporting on. The modeling itself takes 6 months. And that's the reason why we have gone from an annual reporting time frame to a 2-year reporting time frame. In the next slides, we've got Rob Hunt, who would be able to give you a walkthrough of the interactive report card, but my focus is going to be on what's on the Reef Water Quality Report Card website, which uses a standardized 5-point scoring system. A for very good, B for good, C for moderate, D for poor, and E for very poor. And they're color-coded accordingly to make it visually easy to spot. This scoring system assesses progress towards water quality and catchment management targets and inshore marine and wetland condition objectives. The scores for the water quality targets are based on minimum annual reductions. So these are what we absolutely need to achieve to meet the 2025 targets. For context, we've also presented the progress, the cumulative progress since 2009 in the next slide. So the link to the report card is given, but we don't expect you to write all of it down. So what I've got is the QR code, which should take you straight to that site. And the screenshot of the site is presented here. Starting in 2009, there have been 11 report cards in total. In 2017, the switch was made to interactive online delivery. These are the 2025 targets, and what you see here is exactly what is on the present report card. This slide shows you where to find the results. So I'll go on to the results very briefly as well. Right, so these are the findings from 2021 and 2022. This is the overall reef quality report card for the overall reef. And what's of interest to you would be highlighted in here. So the Burdekin catchment has had a 3% reduction in dissolved inorganic nitrogen, which is really, really pleasing. We've also had good condition of the freshwater floodplain wetlands. We've met the target for ground cover for the first time since 2012. And that is quite likely due to the higher rainfall that we've had in the 4-year period. More specific to our region in here, we've got some good news stories here. Obviously, the ground cover has gone up by 88%, which is great and extremely pleasing. The loss of natural wetlands has been reduced to less than 0.1%, which is quite good as well. Here, we're talking about the whole of the Great Barrier Reef. So we're making good progress in areas like reducing particulate phosphorus, meeting ground cover, extent of wetlands, and reducing pesticide use. But of course, more work remains, as is evidenced by the yellows and the reds. So we still can work towards reducing dissolved inorganic nitrogen, for example, all across the reef region, reducing particulate nitrogen as well. So nitrogen generally is an issue for us. Riparian extent and reducing sediment discharge. Right, so this is the last slide, basically just showing where the reef water quality report card sits. We get our data from the regional level on the report cards from wet tropics to the Gladstone region. And our report feeds into the Great Barrier Reef Outlook report. So we're sitting in the middle of it. That's it from me. Thank you.